Hey everyone, happy March. It is the last week of the month, so this episode will be one of our exclusive Patreon bonus episode teasers. You may remember that we do, in fact, have a reality TV show episode with the Annie Sieg called Reality TV is Valid and So Are You. But before that fateful episode was recorded, Annie and I had a first conversation about reality TV that we thought we were going to use as the episode. And then we realized that because we are friends who do not get to talk to one another very often, besides text messaging and commenting and hyping one another up on social media, that we ended up divulging into this just friend chat gossip sesh. And it didn't hold true to the message that is to all the men I've tolerated before, but it makes great Patreon content because a Patreon is all about you learning more about me and my friends. So, this is your teaser, and this is your opportunity to go join us over at patreon.com and look forward to all the men I've tolerated before. The link is in the show notes. Hey tolerators, this is To All the Men I've Tolerated Before with Natalie Katona, the show where my guest and I chat about how misogyny is ever present in everything that we watch and happens to be a huge moneymaker. I'm happy today because I get to spend time with Annie Sieg for an entire hour. This never happens for us. You remember her from our Bodies as Art episode and our first Fireside Live. Annie, thank you so much for being here to talk about our one true love, reality television.
I am thrilled to be here to talk about reality TV. It is my deepest and most disturbing obsession. And I can't wait to get into it.
My mother immediately became disappointed in me, not because of reality TV, but because I told her I was still watching Grey's Anatomy.
Yeah, that's a hard one. That's a hard pill.
It's because I just finished This Is Us and I mentioned it, and she's like, I stopped watching This Is Us on episode 6. And I was like, fair. I'm still watching Grey's Anatomy.
I tried to get into This Is Us because as a kid, Milo Ventimiglia, or however you pronounce his last name, on Gilmore Girls, lit my fire, baby. That was a developmental crush timeline. And so I tried to get into This Is Us just for the Milo of it all. It's not my flavor. But Grey's Anatomy, I didn't stick it out for Grey's, but there was a time in my life where several seasons of Grey's Anatomy, they were there for me in the hard times.
At this time, I think Shonda's just writing episodes for me. I don't talk to anyone else, and they're like, I'm still watching Grey's too. Good for you for being loyal. It's just me.
It's just you and Shonda just having your private time.
Right. It's just me and Shonda. And then months later, my sister will just binge them all. But I also keep her up to date on every episode. I'm like, this is what will piss you off about Owen this season. DeLuca dead.
I mean, now you're making me feel like I need to go back to that well again. Don't do this to me, Natalie. We're here for reality TV. Don't put me back on another scripted drama.
I ask myself once a week if I should be rewatching Glee.
I don't think you should.
No one thinks I should, but every once in a while it comes up and I'm like, should I be rewatching Glee?
Follow your heart. I read something early on in the pandemic because everyone immediately flocked to whatever their comfort TV was, and it was all rewatching, and then everyone got lost in these weird cycles of having to consume the same things over and over again. And I read something about how it was an anxiety response where the world is so scary and uncertain now that it's comforting for us to just consume things that we already know exactly what's going to happen. Yes. We can recite the lines along with it. It's weird.
Which is why I think I'm going to bring it back to reality TV. Early in the pandemic, I got really invested in watching every season of Survivor. And then 6 seasons in, I realized that it's always a different island, but we're always playing the same games in the same order. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, there are a few staples of reality TV that I just somehow, like, once we get talking, you will probably discover that I have seen a truly disturbing amount of reality TV, and yet a couple of the like core fundamentals just missed me. Survivor is one that I don't think I've even ever seen an episode of. Big Brother is another one where I'm like, who's she? I don't know her. I don't know. But I hear good things. I think if anything, I've steered away at this point because I'm like, I can't take that on. There's too much history there.
So Big Brother does this thing that I would like the Bachelor franchise to implement. And I think it would really like re-up my interest in Bachelor Nation. And Big Brother does something called Big Brother After Dark, where you can watch a live stream of them when all of the producers have gone home. And I'm like, that's what I want to see. I want to see what they really talk about when we're not. I want to watch them sit awkwardly in a room trying to share the same magazine.
See, The Bachelor is, I'm glad we're diving into that one right away because I have a lot of feelings about The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, and Bachelor in Paradise and Bachelor Pad and all the various Bachelor accoutrements. But in my brain, Bachelor is like kind of segmented away from a lot of the other reality shows in that a lot of reality shows are about like really digging in and exposing like the true gnarliness of humanity.
Yeah.
And Bachelor and Bachelorette are this like very controlled, different thing where it's like they're trying to kind of hide how gross people are and make it a love story, but then they also know that we want the trash.
Yeah.
So then they try and fabricate a like a controlled burn of the trash. So they just it's a weird one. It feels more to me like a scripted drama than a reality show.
Oh yeah. They manipulate us from the get-go. I remember because I've been watching, well, I recently broke up with the Bachelor franchise, but I watched from the beginning, from that ugly guy Bob G something.
From Ugly Bob.
From Ugly Bob, where it was just like a guy with a goofy ass nose and chubby cheeks and like bad hair, and he's like, I'm the Bachelor. And there was Chris Harrison and that guy who may have also lost a job at American Idol. Like there were two hosts.
The Bachelor at this point, it's probably tacky to plug a podcast on another podcast.
No, that's what we do.
The only way that I still am so plugged into The Bachelor and The Bachelorette at this point is through the podcast Game of Roses, which they basically, I'm obsessed with it. They're these hosts that like analyze The Bachelor and The Bachelorette as if it is like a professional sport, and they have like point assignments for different things. They talk about different approaches, and they rank hujus, which is the hug jump. They talk about like the dismount, the cling, like they like deep analyze what's going on. And then they also do weekly updates on like what the various people in that world are doing on their social media after they leave the game and all of the kind of drama. And I love hearing that kind of stuff. But when I go to watch the actual episodes, they're really boring.
They're really boring. That's why I've stopped watching. I remember the golden days of The Bachelor and The Bachelorette when it was the trashiest show on TV. And we weren't owned by the mouse in the house, because I hate Disney now.
Yeah.
So we weren't owned by Disney, so we could do like scandalous, like blur out a nip slip or like get really drunk and belligerent. I believe that someone did fall in a bush at some point. One chick was communing with aliens one season. Like it was just unhinged. And you were like, yes. And so I think Disney owning ABC made them cool their shit down. But I also think that a scripted show Unreal, where they where they took like a bunch of autobiographies from Bachelor contestants, and also someone who worked for the Bachelor franchise worked on that show for Lifetime. When they started spilling secrets like, we hire therapists and then we use your trauma against you during interviews, so you cried, then ABC was like, all right, well, they're catching on. And we're going to get sued. So,
well, the other part of the problem is that like the fundamental premise of the show doesn't hold up, because the entire thing of like, it's about love and true love and finding your person. well, first of all, it's obviously not, because the producers are doing everything they can to make chaos. So like, that's not them trying to help you. And then if you look at the track record, there's been 8 zillion seasons of this show, and like 3 people from it are still married, and they're probably married mostly for financial reasons.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, no shame in that game, do you, hun? But it's for them to still be clinging. Like, now we're reaching this weird point where people are familiar enough with the strategy of the game and the different kind of archetypes that you can fit into and all of that, that people are going into it with like game plans in mind and strategy in mind. And then when that comes out, then there's this response of, you're here for the wrong reasons. But like, very clearly, those are the reasons everyone is there for.
Yeah.
So it's really losing its grasp on things.
Well, and then this is also why I stopped watching The Bachelor, Bachelorette, because they lie to me all the time. And then I'll listen to these people who I have been manipulated into not trusting and hating and being like, what a terrible person. And they'll go on someone else's podcast and you hear them start to dismantle, like, this is the exact moment that the producers decided I would be the villain. And from that point on, anything and everything I did was misconstrued by not only the showrunner, but by the house as well. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
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 Hi, everyone. Thank you for checking out this week's episode. I wanted to jump on and offer a small reminder of the ways that you can connect with us. The first way is our socials. So we are Men I've Tolerated Pod on Instagram and Natalie K124 on TikTok, my personal Instagram. And you can find us on YouTube and Pinterest under To All the Men I've Tolerated Before. The second way is by becoming a Patreon member. We are well on our way to our 25 member Patreon, where we are going to unlock bonus perks to being a patron member. Shout out to all of our existing patrons. As an independently ran and funded podcast, your support means everything. Another way that you can connect with us is making sure to subscribe and leave comments wherever you can so we can start reading reviews on each podcast episode. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure to check out the merch store, and we will see you next week.